Hello, everyone. I'm back. I hope that it will show up and people will see this. I apologize for technical difficulties. Not sure what happened. And so hopefully it will be working this time. I can never know what causes some of the challenges. And so hopefully, like I said, this is working now and people will find us. And again, just remember that we're going to be respectful with each other, and this is going to be a challenging topic and potential for disagreement. And I really hope that we can do this well. So, the topic of mixing business and religion. And of recent years, it has been more that we just avoid and do not talk about, excuse me, religion, if you will, in a business setting because of the potential for disagreement, problems, conflict. And there are those that would have us not talk about religion ever. And just for some clarification, religion, in my vantage point, is a human construct. It's a way we organize ourselves around our ideas, and so it is a lot of different versions uh, the of religious constructs, different denominations, different churches, and so on. And and what I'm wanting us to think about is a broader sense of the term, and that is our pursuit of spiritual type or ideology type things. And personally, I don't consider myself a religious person. I am more focused on the spiritual. And so, again, just keep a couple of things in mind. And unfortunately, part of the reason that we have so much avoided putting or including religious conversation or faith conversation in the business world is because it's been poorly handled in the past by people, and to a point that it has become a point of disagreement that people cannot get beyond, and that is created part of our issues. And one of the compelling components of that has been that there are those on all from all different persuasions and ideologies and religious grouping, and they feel compelled that to have conversations in and around religion somehow requires that we get people convince people in our fashion, in our way. And one of the things that I have come to a point that I do not try to push people to my point of view. If people want to discuss it, I'm happy to discuss it and have good, healthy conversation around it. But anymore, I'm not going to come to anyone and try to force them or push them into my system of belief or my religious experience, any of that. And so if we can all approach it in that fashion, more as a topic of conversation and finding common ground, then I think we can and should have that as part of our conversation. And if people choose not to participate, that's okay too. It's not a requirement. But what's interesting to me is that around most all religious groups and tenets, there are some common basic tenets in those groups that I think we all, generally speaking, can agree on, such as human respect, such as not killing people, not stealing from people, and different basic values. And those are the part that we're missing in the business world and our core values. And what's interesting is that we think, okay, it doesn't matter to us in business, but it actually does, because one of the costs of doing business now has become a problem around values, and that we have not established and held on to values, and it is actually costing business. Welcome, Melody. Glad that you found the second iteration here. My apologies for the technical challenges. Hopefully, others will be able to find us and engage and comment. And so, one of the things and one of the reasons that I'm approaching this topic is that when we can find common ground in our values that are present in most religious constructs, it's going to help us to be able to be more effective in our business because of just a sheer cost factor. The last numbers that I have seen in and around this topic, and the loss because of lack of integrity, lack of ethic, is been in the neighborhood of over $50 billion annually because of people cheating, people stealing, and that comes in different forms. That comes in forms of taking things from work. It probably one of the bigger ones that we have is people reporting work time and not being at work, or not being productive, or what have you. And a lot of this comes down to ethics and integrity. And if you talk to most business people, a big concern that is in the business world for business owners and leadership is in and around ethics and integrity. And one of the ways that we can find that common ground and a basis for those values is through some, and in fact, I would say most of our religious constructs. They all have a set of core values that we can tie into and agree on that will help us in business. Additionally, it helps us to understand each other. And part of the challenge there is that we need to make sure that as we understand each other, that it is not incumbent upon us to try and change other people. Excuse me. At times, we will be instrumental in influencing other people in a positive way, but that should not be our purpose. Our purpose is to share who and what we are, what our belief systems are, and our values, in the hope of finding common value so that we can rally around those commonalities and work together as a team. Let's see, Melody makes a comment. Says, I agree with you. We don't need to push others or be preachy. Just be an example of good values and a love one another baseline. And that's an important part of it, Melody, is that it's not, we should not bring religion, faith, even spirituality into the workplace for the purpose of proselytizing in terms of trying to debate, discuss, or convince people about our particular set of values or our tenets or religious beliefs, but rather to be an example with them in regards to the common values that we can find between people and based in our religious values. And so, yeah, and there's nothing wrong. In fact, we should be consistent with our behaviors relative to our religious beliefs, our tenets, our values. And otherwise, we get into a whole topic, another challenging topic, and that is hypocrisy. But what we have come to do in the workplace, and quite often even in social settings, is that we just say, rather than have healthy discussions, even disagreements, we try to just avoid it. And I think there is a downside that is occurring as a result. It first of all, if we have topics that we put off limits, if you will, and it's going to limit the relationships that we can have, because we can't be open with others about ourselves and about relationship to other people as a result of turning off different topics. And by the way, I know that it's not just business and religion that are topics that we do this with. Politics is another one, and there are other topics out there that we say are taboo to talk about, and I think that is an unwise choice. And I know we have to be considerate of legal considerations, and that varies from one country to the next and one culture to the next. And so be aware, be sensitive to that aspect of things as well. But the sooner we can have healthy, open conversations in and around our belief systems, our religion, our spirituality, whatever it is, and be accepting and be able to find common ground in establishing the values that are shared among most religious constructs, then we have a chance then of having ethical and moral behaviors that we all can agree on, just a basic level. And when we can do that, we have a chance, better chance. Not no construct is perfect, but we have a better chance at that point of not paying the price for having people in our midst at work that don't have values and ethics, and therefore do not have any issue with, and just to be blunt, cheating the company. And I see this in a lot of different settings, and I see the struggle out there where people say, yeah, I was at work at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock or whatever, and they actually don't start work until 15 minutes later, 30 minutes later, but they're getting paid. And at the end of the day, don't mean to be blunt, but sometimes, radical candor is what we need. And that's, at the end of the day, that's stealing from the company, from the people that own the business. And so those are the kinds of things that are going on that are become very costly to businesses. Again, the data out there indicates that it may be as much as in excess of 50 billion with a B dollars annually because of this problem. The lack of ethics and integrity are costing business remarkably. And beyond that, when we say the goal is to have a culture of teamwork and respect, and how can we have that if we have areas that are especially important to people, but yet it can't be a part of what is going on? And I know for me, I can't speak for other people. For someone to tell me that my faith and my spiritual pursuits have to be left at home or left outside of the office, or however you want to phrase it, that limits me remarkably in my ability to function, because my faith, my belief system is integrated in all that I do and who I am. And once people understand who I am better, then I have a better chance of being able to get along and work with them. And that's part of the challenge we face in our workforce, is the area of conflict because of misunderstanding. Some of it's disagreement, but when we can get it out in the open and come to terms with it and have a mutual respect based around reality for each person involved, the better we have a chance to function as teams and function effectively. And again, we get back to being able to agree on a core set of values that we can operate from, that are going to make a difference, not just from a team standpoint, but just very pragmatically from a cost standpoint. And so the idea that we have banned, in some cases, the topic of religion in business is a problem, and it's a costly problem. And what I did a poll on this topic, and it's been real interesting to see. I asked the question if people think that we should have freedom of religion, keyword of, versus freedom from religion, keyword is from. And it's been interesting to see the way people have responded. And unfortunately, there are people that believe that religion should not even be a topic of conversation, and that we should never bring it up. And that as a result, I suggest that we are hurting ourselves and we're hurting our businesses. And because for most people, I understand that there are people that are a-religious, and I appreciate that, and I even can respect that. In the same fashion, though, the people that are a-religious that have no interest or desire for it have to learn that there are many that are religious in one form or another and should be respected in their perspective as well. And more we can do that, the more effective that we can be in our business, the more effectively we can build teams. And that doesn't mean that we have to actually agree on everything to be a team. I would even suggest that if you've got a team and everybody agrees on everything, somebody's not needed. So the value of diversity among a team is great, and that includes in our diversity in our religious constructs, our spiritual beliefs, our lack of those beliefs. And so we just really need to allow that to be a part, because if we don't, that it becomes the proverbial elephant in the room, and it can actually lead to problems and conflict by avoiding it and not dealing with it. And again, the key word here is in a healthy fashion. If it becomes a deal where people are using the freedom of religion that here in the U.S., I mean, it's actually part of our constitutional rights. And when we violate that, we're causing a different set of problems. So we just need to get away from this because it's controversial. We're just not going to have it apart. And that would be, for example, like saying, and I'm going to probably get a little bit out there with this. Okay, let's say that the teams that we have in our business are made up of short people and tall people. And we're going to say, well, because short people are offended when tall people talk about being tall, that we're going to then make it a taboo or even banned topic because it might offend or might have disagreement with other people. And that it's for someone to try to work in an environment that is tall, but is told they can't uh, live knowing that they can't express aspects of it, and it is to be ignored, completely not acknowledged, then I think uh, that that creates a problem for us, and it affects our work environment. And so I think that that's a challenge that we need to face and deal with and open up the aspects of that and get the value that we have. Melody makes a comment that her faith is part of who she is. And I understand that us to understand that there are many people out there that their religion or their faith, their spiritual beliefs are a very important part. And when we say, well, we can't even talk about it, we can't acknowledge that, then it creates some challenges. Welcome, Layman. Glad to have you with us. And Layman makes a comment that he agrees. Welcome, Zaid. I'm glad that you found us. I'm not sure what happened this morning to our technology. And welcome, I hope I pronounced correctly, Ahichioa. Glad to have you with us from Nigeria. And let's see, Zaid ask a question. Let's see what Zaid asked. Says, I want to ask a question sub to the subject. Is it true the company rules are above the Constitution rights? Like if I say it's my right to express my opinion about this issue, and the answer comes, we're a private company and we don't allow it. That's a tough one. You have to ask yourself, are we going to challenge it legally and so on? And a question that we have to consider. And if the company values are that divergent to our personal values, a logical question in my mind, and I think it would be wise to consider, do I need to be working for that company to start with? And one of the challenges there is that some people think that a privately owned company should be forced to change or change their values based on even law. And I'm not sure that that is the case in a private organization. Now, the laws that we deal with, constitutional, are to protect us in public places and ways, and by all means needs to be defended. But if a private company chooses to apply their values, and again, I'm not a lawyer, I've run businesses, so I know some of this, and I've actually taken classes in business law. But another consideration in any of this has to be equal treatment. And that means if we say, and again, I'm pulling an example out of the air that may be almost silly, but if the company rule is or value is that I don't know, all left-handed people have to work extra hours. Again, it's kind of silly, but hopefully it makes the point. And as long as that rule or value is applied consistently across their entire workforce, then you're in compliance with equal opportunity rules and laws. But again, consistency is part of that. Again, just so you'll know, the example I gave, I'm not endorsing that. don't consider that to be right or even wise. Remember, part of what we discuss on here is not necessarily about moral or legal, but what we're looking for is wise, because not everything that is legal and moral is always wise. And that's part of what we're after, is to understand how to make wise choices and have wise understanding. Welcome, Richard. Glad to have you with us. Let's see, your comment says that had we been taught earlier in life how to talk about religion, it might not be so hard to do today. The topic of religion in a discussion usually comes with a difference of opinion. What better way to learn from someone and get something done? See, that's part of this whole conversation that we really need to consider, is that when we shut down certain topics, certain things, especially things that are important to many people, okay, and most people, I don't know the exact data, but having lived a long time, learned an awful lot, that most people have some manner of religious belief or construct that is very important to them. And what's interesting is that people that say that they're a-religious, that they have no interest or don't think it's important. Well, in a way, that group of individuals make up another type of ideology that is also something that comes close with being a religious construct and should be respected in the same fashion as others. And so, again, having those conversations, learning how to discuss these topics goes so far to help us learn about good communication. It helps us learn about how to be effective in a team, and then it helps us then not have areas that are unresolved, therefore become stumbling blocks in the process of functioning together. So some real challenges that we face, and I will kind of take a side turn here, chase a rabbit for a moment. That part of the reason that we have a problem with this is an issue that many of us have not dealt with, and that's understanding how our value as a person is established. And because someone else it doesn't agree with us or doesn't believe with us, especially on something that is really important to us, then we become offended and defensive in regards to that topic. And in that case, that becomes an obstacle to us working with other people. And I keep sharing, and this is my personal perspective, but I believe it to be a piece of wisdom. And that is that our value as a person has already been established. We don't establish it, nor do others. It's established by our Creator or by your existence as a person. And that value is great, even priceless. And real key here is that we all have this great value as human beings. And so us getting in situations and becoming defensive because we feel like someone challenges our value, it's not a problem of the debate or the topic. It's a problem of where we come from and the felt need to defend ourselves, to establish our value. And if we can, as humans, recognize that our value is already there and others can't change it, we can't lose it, then we're in a much better place to be able to disagree about things, but do it in an agreeable fashion, because we don't have to win and prove the other person wrong, because if we don't prove them wrong, then we're wrong, and that challenges our value as a person. And that's a core or a root reason that we have trouble talking about subjects that are controversial or that we may disagree on. And that is, I believe, at the core of part of this problem. So I would encourage everyone to do some real searching for yourself to find out, what is your value, how does it occur, and how do you maintain it, or do you have to maintain it? I'm of the opinion that by being human, we have great value already, and that it is equally valuable across any person's cultures, ethnicities. It doesn't matter. Our value's been established. So for me, what that means is, if someone disagrees with something that's important to me, I don't have a felt need to defend myself. Will I debate and discuss? Sure. I think it's health. If done healthy, it's a way we grow, and it's a way that we grow even in our own, belief systems, to be able to get stronger, not weaker in it, or learn the flaws in our way we believe or think. But in order to do that, we have to be fully convinced that our value is not at risk here. It's not being challenged. What we get challenged on is how we think, how we behave, things like that. And by the way, recognizing our value and accepting our value, come to put it in another term, loving ourselves, loving who we've been created to be, doesn't mean that we don't need to grow and change. I would suggest that it even puts us in a better place to grow and change, because we've accepted ourselves and we know we don't have to prove our value. That's established. We're just getting better at being who we're supposed to be. Let's see. Zaid has a follow-on question. Private and ownership, but when open to public, wouldn't this make the place public outside from the ownership? See, I am of my opinion, and it's not necessarily rule of law, but if I risk the money to build a business and take on that responsibility, as long as I'm not violating laws, as long as I am not violating rules, it's my choice to set my company values and to look for people that will share those values, and more importantly, that they will behave in accordance with whatever my company rules are. And that can be done in a legal fashion if we approach it correctly. Therefore, it's not a legal issue. Some would say it's a moral issue. For me, I have to ask the question about the wisdom of it, but certainly it's a choice that a private business can make. And so I don't think just because this business sells to the public makes it a public business. It's still privately owned, because the public's not going to go to that business and help if there's a risk that has occurred in the business, such as a financial shortfall or something. The public is not expected to come in and resolve that. That's on that owner. So the risk is theirs, therefore the rules are theirs. Again, as long as it is within legal constraints. And that what part of the problem we've encountered, and is that because a business is serving the public or is in the public eye, that they're subject to being forced to do certain things that I think are inappropriate. And we have people that think that they are owed a job, and as a result, that the owner of this business should adjust to that person's preferences, and not I don't believe that's the case. And in fact, I have people that go and want to say they want to work for this company, but they will fight legally because there's a core disagreement in a value or something like that. And in my mind, and I hope I'm not offensive, but I think that's unwise. Why would we uh, why would we choose to want to force a company to hire us that has a basic value that we completely disagree with? So, again, I think that we've got some challenges to deal with, and that's one of them. Welcome, Brian. Glad to have you sitting in the airport in DC. And let's see what Brian's comment is. Says, I believe the greatest way to live out faith in business is to begin with genuine connection, kindness, and example of who you say you are. I would agree, Brian. We talk about it in social media world. We talk about authenticity, and we say how important authenticity is, and yet we have people that would say, well, you can be authentic as long as it's not this or this or this. That creates a problem. That creates a lack of opportunity, as you say, Brian, to connect and work together. And of course, the values that we need to consider, and you mentioned, is kindness. Most religious constructs teach kindness in some way or another, and teach helping each other some way or another, and to value other humans. Now, I'm not foolish enough to say that's true of all religious constructs, because there are some out there that do not have that value, and that creates a different challenge. The other thing, and this is a problem that we create, is that within every religious construct, there are people that claim to be part of that construct that are not a good example of the beliefs and tenets of that construct. We have to be careful. Just because there are bad examples from any group, organization, faith system, so on, that we, as a result, condemn or reject all of that. And I will tell you very frankly, doing that is unwise behavior. And it is actually, again, back to just pure business. It costs business a lot of money, time, energy, all kinds of things when we have these behaviors and we tolerate them. And so kindness is something that is a value that is important to many people. And I suspect that many companies have that value, and it should be allowed to be a part of discussion, because what we find is when we will have these discussions with the intent not to proselytize, not to push or coerce people into our way of seeing or believing, but rather for the purpose of authenticity, that quite often that we find common ground more readily than not by looking at these things that are considered controversial, but are at the same time, the reason they're controversial is they are important to people. And to just say, well, we can't talk about that, in my estimation, is an unwise choice in this whole process. Let's see. Brian also shares. I said that in People Buy from People. By the way, Brian has a book out there, and he's a marketing genius, if you will, and so check that out. But his book is called People Buy from People. One of the things people buy, quote unquote, from us in deep connection is authenticity, and for most people to tell them that they cannot live their tenets of their religion, their faith, their spiritual constructs, and can't talk about it, you keep them by that very approach from being authentic. Yet we have many people agree that authenticity is important. And I agree with that in order to work as a team, we need to understand each other's strengths, weaknesses, superpowers, warts, all of it, because I will tell you something you can write down, that none of us are perfect. And if you think that you are, we need to have another discussion about some challenges. But most of us need to just accept that we are not perfect, that we are not the same. We're each unique, and that none of us is better than another, because we have equal value as human beings, and that equal value is given to us as by our Creator, and the fact that we are actually human beings. And when we can establish that baseline to work from, then after that, we can overcome a lot of conflict and obstacles, and we can still even disagree with each other, but it not become an obstacle for us to work together. What I teach, I teach leadership, and I tell leaders that the wisest choice that you can make is to have people on your team that are not like you, or that are not necessarily like each other. And some of the best teams have people on them that in many ways are actually diametrically opposite of each other. And the key to that working, though, has to be that common basis, that common set of values to work from. And for many of us, those values are based in our personal religious beliefs, our faith, our spiritual ideologies, different things. And to ignore those, to make those taboo, is not wise with the goal in mind of being able to work together. Excuse me. Brian makes another comment. He says that I have a good friend who says this often: who you really are manifests itself sooner or later. Indeed, one of the challenges that we face by making the conversation in around religion, and I'll throw in, because this is another one, in around politics and other areas of controversy, by making those off limit, we are setting our people up for the manifestation of themselves. And usually in those cases, handled in that fashion, it is unhealthy. Whereas if we, in a healthy fashion, bring it out, include it as part of our conversation, and recognize it and learn to accept those differences, then we aren't surprised when people behave in accordance with their particular set of beliefs or constructs, religious background. We understand them. And by the way, a challenge that we face and something that as leaders is understanding people and their personalities. There are some of us that are wired very differently from others. And when we try to work together and we clash, if you will, because we are wired differently, part of the problem is an assumption that we make, a context that we give, that somehow this person who is wired a certain way is doing what they do, not because they're wired that way, but because they're trying their best to annoy me or to annoy you. And when we can take away that motivation with understanding about people and their makeup, that at least keeps us from reacting to what we think of as ill motivation or selfish motivation or even hurtful motivation. Whereas we find out the reason they do that, that's the way they're wired, or that's their system of belief, or whatever. And again, there has to be a level of constraint in that if someone is wired and to do things dangerous and hurt people, that's different. Okay, we have to have constraint and accountability. That's key. But at the end of the day, to say people talking about their faith, their religious beliefs is off limits, is keeping us from having healthy business connections and relationships. And I suggest very strongly that it is unwise to take that approach. And I hope that what we'll begin to do is to revisit this and look at healthy ways to deal with the disagreement without it becoming a conflict. And that is possible, even realistic to do, but it takes work, it takes understanding, it takes good leadership, all part of it. But to just simply ignore it because it is potentially controversial or could lead to conflict, I think is very foolish. And I think it hurts us in business to take that approach. Uh, Again, there are different ways to go about it, different healthy approaches. But to say, let's just don't talk about it or allow that conversation, that's unwise, in my opinion. I think it's foolish because here in the U.S., again, constitutional principle is that we have freedom of religion, the option to exercise our religion as we see fit within the constraints of the rest of the Constitution and law. But in businesses, we just say, well, we just aren't going to let you talk about it or exercise your beliefs because it might cause conflict. I think we're being foolish. And I think part of the result that we're seeing is the cost to business in the lack of ethics, because ethics and values are very likely for most people tied to their religious belief system. And my experience and considerable observation research is that the core values that companies need to have out there and that many company owners try to have out there, integrity, okay, honesty, some of those values, those are all a common value among religious constructs. So why not have that as part of our conversation? Why not let that drive the values of our company as a place of common ground, and to allow people to be authentic, to walk in who they really are, and rather than it manifesting in a way as Brian said, and manifesting. The problem when we wait and it manifests is usually not in a good situation. Whereas if we discuss it in a proper setting and time, then we don't have surprises, and then we can deal with it in a healthy way and bring benefit to the company and to the people. And so, again, I challenge the wisdom of saying we can't talk religion in business. And I think the result of that is something we're seeing today in many ways, including a hefty price tag of billions of dollars because we have people that don't share the values that need to happen and will steal from companies, take advantage of companies, and so on. So, just some thoughts. I hope I have not said anything that would offend anyone, not my intent, but I do hope to challenge us to seek out wisdom. And sometimes, in order to seek out wisdom, we have to struggle. And sometimes we have to work through things that aren't easy or ideal. And this is one of them. And so I really hope that we can take away something today of value. My apologies again for the technology. What can I say? Technology is a great tool, but sometimes it doesn't work right. And today was one of them. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate you all being here, making the effort to raise points and bring forth consideration. I hope at the end of the day, you'll go back with some things to think about and consider and seek wisdom for yourself. Really look into it and look at how you can approach even disagreement in a healthy way and come away benefiting to you and to others in the process. So thank you. God bless you. Hope you have an amazing week. We'll see you back again next Monday morning, 8 o'clock. Hopefully, at that point, the technology works. Take care, everyone. Thank you again.